Right, I'm gonna pause here, I think. Checkpoint is probably here if I rest. Hopefully.
Finally.
Let me see the checkpoints. How about that? I don't want to load a checkpoint, I want to see what they are. Grim spend. Yes, well that's the very last point that I was on. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna take a break there. I do have to say something more about this game's combat. I mean, now that I guess I am doing a full playthrough before, you know, Black Myth Wukong comes out. What an inconvenient fucking combat this game has. Like, the one very big thing that makes it better from Banisher's Ghost of New Eden is the fact that the enemies are more interesting. That is like fundamentally the one thing that makes it more interesting. Is because in that game, the combat was very inconvenient, yes, but the enemies were very boring and bland, fighting like the same, like fucking 5 enemies throughout the entire game. I'm getting kind of the same vibe with this one, but what I more so mean with the enemies being more interesting is that they are more threatening. No, threatening. So it doesn't get boring as fast when you feel more challenged, you know? So that's fundamentally one nice thing about this game. This game's combat. Another nice thing about this game's combat is that there is a nice amount of... or not a nice amount, there is an alright amount of strategy in this game's combat after each move you do. On like either dodging, attacking, blocking, parrying, or shooting that you can choose between after every action. That, you know, change how easily some encounters can be with, especially if there's many enemies, and then when there's encounters with that are just 1v1s. But there isn't like that much strategy to it, but there is some. The fucking cadence combat in this game is just... It would be good if the enemies had the same pacing and speed as you do. Then it would be good, I think. But with how slow your attacks are and how low your animations are before you can do another action, it makes no fucking sense why every single enemy in this game attacks and retaliates twice as fast, sometimes 3 times as fast even, than you do a fucking light attack. So the game becomes a hide and seek game almost with which one is the aggressor in every situation. If you want to attack your opponent in this game, you have to just keep guessing or hoping that the other person that you are fighting doesn't swing at you at the same time. Because if they do, they will most of the time, with their very cheesy and cheap attacks, hit you first, cancel your attack, stagger you, and do good amount of damage. So you are constantly just having to guess and hope that the enemy does not attack the same time you do. And that really fucking messes up with the flow of combat in this game. It makes you, like, it fundamentally makes you more frustrated if you are challenged in this game in this manner, where you only have to retaliate against enemies rather than being able to be proactive against the enemies. And if you are trying to be proactive against the enemies, as I just explained, if the enemy just happens to swing at you at the same time, for example, most of the time their swings hit you much faster than your swing hits them. So if you try to be the proactive one, then you have to either hope that they don't swing at the same time, basically just RNG, or you have to find like a way or a different mechanic that hits the enemies as fast as they hit you or faster than they hit you. So like the gun being one thing, you can shoot the gun faster than they can most of the time swing at you, or roughly at the same time against some of the fastest attacks. So that's one thing you can do, I suppose, at the start. But it doesn't stagger them all most of the time when you use the pistol or the musket. So like, it does damage, yes, but it doesn't stagger them, so you don't get an opening. And then obviously I mean, I already mentioned this, but why the hell to all of the enemies in this game, the weakest enemies and the strongest enemies that I have seen, why the fuck are they all so fucking fast? It makes no sense for them to have such like cheap, like really fast attacks. Like they have alright tells for what the attacks are, but the attacks themselves hit you so fast that you don't have enough time to even recognize what the tell is. So there is a big difference there compared to games like, Code Vein as one good example that I recently played, where like both the tells on the enemy attacks were not that great, and then the enemy attacks were also fast as fuck. With this game, the tells are better, but the attacks are so fucking fast that you have to most of the time just predict what the enemy does, based off your knowledge of how the enemy's moveset that you are fighting works. So it becomes more just kind of checkmate fighting, rather than your skill, rather than like your intuitive, like, decision making as a veteran of these games, or if you get just on the same like wavelength with the game, so same with something like Sekiro or Bloodborne, where you can instinctively just fight new enemies and succeed against greater adversities or adversities more easier by just fundamentally being better at the game because you have improved. With this game, it's hard to say, because the enemy attacks are so cheap that you basically just have to know what the moveset is exactly. You just have to know what each tell, by like less than half of the second you see any tell, you have to instantly be able to guess what it is. And if you can't guess what it is, then you have to know what it is, and if you don't know what it is, then you just have to always assume that it's the fastest and cheapest attack. And it makes the gameplay very frustrating against most enemies, because it seems so cheap, and then you have to be reactionary all the time as well. So enemies' attacks and speed feels cheap compared to your own attack speed and play and the cadence that you have to play on, and you have to also be reactive all the time. So it creates a circle of gameplay loop where you are always the one who reacts, and if you fuck up something when you react to the enemy's attacks, then it feels twice as frustrating, if not more, than if you are proactively making mistakes yourself by playing faster, and then you mess something up while being able to play proactive and fast. Then it feels like more so, it's a more like fun way to fuck up something than it is to be the reactionary party who plays slower and fucks up something. Like, that is just incredibly punishing and irritating gameplay if it's too challenging like that. But I guess I just explained how, like, that last bit I explained how, like, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and yeah, pretty much up to that point. Like Dark Souls 1, 2, and Demon Souls, how those games basically work. Because the speed on the enemies in those games compared to your own attack speed a lot of the time was... Actually, no, I can't really say that. Only if you use very slow weapons, yes. But if you use anything that is like a normal greatsword, or a normal axe, or anything faster than that, you can probably always get free swings before the enemy does an attack against pretty much anything. And the enemies also stagger from your hits, so you actually get rewarded by being active, proactive, because you can stagger some of the enemies with your attacks as well. But yeah, that's actually about enough of this. Yeah, I don't know. Looking at the skill tree in this game, I don't think it's gonna get a whole lot interesting, to be honest. But there is some strong passive effects that I saw there. We'll see where this goes. Also, the map in this game seemed very concise. That's a very big bonus, that one. Because when you have a smaller map where there's less amount of stuff, less quantity of stuff at least, it's more easily to have better quality of the areas when there's less to, explore. So I like that approach a lot more, rather than making an absolutely fucking massive map that is devoid of any, like, interesting points. But yeah, I'm gonna go now, and I guess I will continue this game the day after tomorrow, maybe. Maybe even tomorrow.